Tonight in RCVTV, we're going to be taking a look at the Nautilus X, the new mouth-to-lung tank from Aspire. Alright, so let's take a look at what you got in the box with the Nautilus X. Now, as mentioned in the previous video, my 4-year-old did paint my nails recently, so sorry about that. Alright, so inside the box, you get the tank itself. The one we're dealing with today is the limited edition, and the difference is it's got a frosted glass rather than a clear, and this one is rainbow colored. It also comes in a gold, a black, and a silver. So you get the tank itself in the box. Underneath the little paper cover, you do get a spare piece of glass, a spare coil, and then you do have a little tiny warning card telling you to let the coil sit with juice in it before you take your first couple pulls. But we're going to be showing you how to prime it, so you don't have to worry about that. Alright, so the spare coil that it comes with is different from the one that is installed in it. We'll get into that in a couple minutes. Alright, so the first thing you know about this tank is that it is very small. Now, the nice thing about that is that it is going to fit very well on any device. It's very flat, it's got no random curves to it or anything like that, so it sits nice and flush, things like that. Now, the reason that is because in Europe they have a law that states you cannot have an e-juice tank that holds more than 2 mils. This is a 2 mil tank, so it complies to European laws. Now, the nice thing about this tank is that it takes into effect a couple designs they've tried in the past, and it kind of turns them on their head. So what they're calling with this new tank, the Nautilus X, is that it's still a mouth-to-lung tank. You can get up there a little bit in wattage using the right coil. You can hit about 22-ish watts. So not too bad, but it's definitely still for that mouth-to-lung style vape. But the coils have changed up a little bit. So if you grab this whole top section of the tank and lefty-loosey that section, that'll pop open, and this is going to be your coil. Generally speaking, when it's brand new in the package, it seems to stick to the top section, but it usually is supposed to be threaded down into the base. Now, this glass is just sitting on some O-rings, so you can actually just pull that right off. So if you need to clean your whole device, that's it right there, just those 3 parts. It's not too much to it at all, pretty easy. Now, the thing about the coils is that they are calling it the U design. So what that means is that your air actually comes in from the top, goes down past the coil itself, bends up like a U, and comes straight back up into your mouth. So the air actually travels across the coil twice. Now, the benefit to this is that in hopes that it'll give you a little bit better flavor at those lower wattages like this is designed for. The biggest benefit is that as long as this tank is sitting upright and your glass is not cracked and your metal is in a good working condition, it is impossible for it to leak as long as it's sitting upright, because essentially the tank acts kind of like a cup. It's very similar to the way the Cubus works. Now, the only thing I do not like about this design is the way they've restricted the amount of air. So that hole there at the top lines up with your drip tip. So you can see, even though your drip tip is a nice wide bore, it actually restricts it down to that. So no matter what tip you put on it, it's going to restrict it down to that same little hole in the coil. But it still is good for that mouth-to-lung hit. You just can't give it that direct lung kind of pull. So the weird thing about this tank that I have not liked is that the drip tip itself is very similar to the Cletos. It slides over this section with the O-ring on it. Now, what that means is you can use the tank without a drip tip if you were to lose it or break it, but any of your standard stuff does not fit perfectly well on this, so you do have to have a drip tip that slides over that section right there. Now, your airflow on this tank is controlled by just this top little ring on top of the top threaded bit. So if you actually spin that section back and forth, you can see it covers up or opens up more of your airflow. And now it does have quite a big drastic effect on it, but after about half to about full open, you won't notice too much just because of that restrictive hole they got in there. So let's prime this coil up, we'll fill the tank up, and then we'll take it up top and have a vape on it. So this top section right here, like I showed you before for opening up, we'll pull that right off. Like I said, there's the coil getting stuck again. So we're going to take the coil off. We're going to make sure that it's threaded down into the bottom so it's making good connection. Nothing too over tight. You just want it finger tight. As soon as it snugs up, you don't need to do it anymore. So for today, we are going to be using some Dexter 3 milligrams from the RCV Signature Juice line. Now, priming these coils is a little bit different. If you ever use the original Nautilus, it was 5 drops right down the top. Now with this guy, as you can see, it's kind of hard to drip juice into the coil because of that teeny tiny little hole. So you more or less just want to paint the wicking holes on the side, and I usually will do this about 2 or 3 times. And then I will try to get it 1 or 2 drops down the top just so the inner part of the coil is definitely saturated as well as that outside. Stick your tip right in, just give it 2 tiny little squeezes. You don't want to give it too much, all that juice will just end up back in your tank anyways. Glass will slide right over. You fill up that whole cup reservoir section. And you can fill it right to the brim. The only downside to filling it to the brim is the seal will push a little bit of that juice out sometimes, not all the time. Thread it all back together, and that's pretty much it. This one's ready to go. So we're gonna take this up top. We're gonna be putting it on an iStick 40 watt, which is more than enough power to get this thing going well. So yeah, see you up top in a sec. All right, so we're up top. We got the tank on my iStick 40 watt here. I did forget one thing that we're going to talk about for a quick sec here, and it's the coils. So the one that comes pre-installed in it is a 1.8 coil. It's got from about 12 to about 18 watts. So kind of similar on the low end to what your original Nautilus would be like. And then you can bring it up just a little bit higher because the older ones were only get up to about 15 watts. Now the coils that are being more commonly grabbed are the 1.5s, and it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there. It says 14 to 20 watts. So these are the ones that can go a little bit higher. Now it says on the side of this coil that 20 watts is the max. On the coils that you get in the boxes that are 1.5, they tend to say 22 watts on them. So I'm not sure what that is exactly, but as far as things are concerned, you can definitely take it up into that little bit warmer mouth to lung range that you might be kind of looking for. So I got it on the iStick 40 watts. We're going to be starting this off at, let's say 11.5 watts. Let's bring this up to, let's say 13 on this coil. And then I have the airflow all the way open. A wonderful little mouth to lung. That U style airflow that I was talking about before, it actually does wonders on the juice. This is one of the best tasting tanks I've tried Dexter in, and Dexter is a juice that I've tried a lot of tanks with it with. You definitely can't get a lung haul out of this thing. It's just too restrictive. It actually might make you cough trying to do that. You'll end up getting less vapor production than if you're going to mouth to lung it. So that's at 13 watts. Let's bring this up just a little bit. I said 18 was the max for these guys, so let's try 17.5. Not much of a change between that 13 to 18 watts. Not much that I would notice. I'd probably keep it a little bit lower to try and keep the battery life a little bit better. But all in all, it's not a bad little vape. If you're looking for that mouth-to-lung tank that's very stealthy and got a nice look to it, change up the old Nautilus. It is a wonderful little tank. All right, so that's pretty much it for us tonight, guys. Thanks for watching, and as always,
subscribe to the channel, like the videos.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter.
like us on Facebook, and until next time,
Make smart choices.
choices.